Future Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below to see all of those discounted games. Hello my friends, today it's all about the lightning. But no, not the lightning in the sky. We're talking about lightning on the ground because we're also talking about trains going across the country, rail to rail, delivering things at different stations in different cities. We're talking about Lightning Train. This is from Dire Wolf. This is a bag building train game designed by Paul Dennen, the same one that did Clank, Dune Imperium and things like that. And Wild Wild West, his most underrated game. So let me show you at a very high level the main concepts of the game, and I'll tell you what I think on the other side. Now, this is a bag building train game, and each player is going to have their own company, like Continental Rutabaga. You're going to have your board, and each round you're going to be drawing chits out of a bag, because it's a bag builder. You have some that are starting out, and these are your options during your turn to be able to do what you want to do. Now, the board is the United States with different regions like Midwest, Southwest, South, and the game starts with a semi-random setup with some stations at different places that want certain goods, and certain goods laid out everywhere. Also, almost each round, cards are going to come out at the beginning of the round that's going to add goods to different places, like some oil in Calgary. Now let's say this was actually our first pull, and you can do many different things on your turn. This is Lightning Train, the name of the game. Every time you pull one of those, you get a train from your supply and place it here that you're on the Lightning that you're able to use and that you must use this round. So I've already used this. I'll have some money we can spend later, we'll talk about. But I also have 3 trains that I'm going to be able to possibly use this round, and I have a contract in the northeast, or sort of the Atlantic area there. One of the things you can do is build stations. There's 2 large and 2 small available every round. Let's say I wanted to build this one, and let's say I wanted to build it in just out inside of Boston here. So I would place it just like this, but it costs 2 trains in order to build that. So essentially I would take 2 of my trains, I would use them for a build station action that you can only do once per turn. They're kind of used there. They'll move off the board at the end of the turn, but this is sort of tracking what I have left to use. Now in order to build anything like a station or rails, you need to have a contract for that area. And so this one was Northeast. It's colorized. It says Northeast or the Atlantic region. So I used this contract in order to do that. If I didn't have that, you can get sort of a wild contract. If I had extra trains here, I could put 2 here and secure a contract. This is like using a wild contract for 1 round. So if you don't draw the right contract, you can use trains, but it's very punishing in a currency way. Now, because I had this contract, that allows you to build a station, and if you can also build some trains. And I do have 1 left, thanks to my Lightning Train. And when you build trains, you have to start either at a city that has one of the suns on the east, or come from one of your stations, or connect to one of your other rails. Now, when building from a station, you actually get 1 free train. So this one would actually come from my supply, not from the board that I had just sort of almost took from. Now, normally in order to deliver, you would have need to have had a chit that you pulled with a delivery icon on it. But everyone starts with a couple of these, a certain amount of these depending on where you are in player order. That is like a one-time use, I can deliver. So let's show you how something delivers. So they want passengers here, here it is, they're going to deliver here, they're going to deliver it, and everything can only get delivered once each game to each spot like that. So that is delivered, those passengers cannot be delivered to Boston anymore this game. It got a point for each segment, so purple gets a point, and purple gets a point here because it was delivered to their thing. You're not always using your own trains. You can be using anyone's trains, but anything that goes over, those players are getting points for sections of trains and stations. So I got 2 points there, and you're getting points up on things like this on the score track. Now, as you move up on the score track, you're going to be able to unlock extra abilities, extra chits, get extra action cards, and things like that as your points go up. And so now there'll still be 1 passenger here left, but it can't go to Boston. It's going to have to go somewhere else. Now when building rails like this one, you'd have to actually have 2 to place here. You can't just build it halfway. Some of these need tunnels, which means you need to use explosives to get through there. And sometimes when you build trains, you'll get points. Like this one has 2. You'll get 2 points for building this entire line, 1 for this one, for example, and things like that. So most of your points are going to be from making trains, putting trains down and making deliveries. Now, since that was from a station, I got to use a free train. I still have 1 left, but I can't really do a whole lot with it. You could put it in line storage. This means I can use this for another train section later for future. And so I've used the contract. Now, this is a starting contract, so it's a special one that actually gets discarded if I use it, but I have 3 money to spend. Now, there's always 6 chits available to buy. They start out at certain spots depending on what they are, and things get like money and deliveries, or having a Southwest contract and a conductor. Conductors, they get you some locomotives when you get them, But if you get 2 conductors, you actually get a lightning train. So it's a way to get more trains. Sometimes they give you money in deliveries, or lightning trains in deliveries, or conductors and points, or 2 lightning trains, all different things. And as you buy these, they get refilled right away. And so it shows you the cost of these. This is the sort of bag building aspect of this. Now, the pieces that you use that weren't getting trashed, like that starter contract, goes to your warehouse, and when you'll pull from your bag, and if you don't have enough, then you'll pull from your warehouse and put them in your bag, like a normal bag builder would be. Now, also, as you're drawing tokens, I told you that conductors get you locomotives. They act as normal trains, but they also have a plus sign. Many tokens that you'll buy will have plus signs, and they don't fill up your 5 spot. They actually give you some extra spots, so sometimes you can have more than 5, up to 7 by default. However, if you end up putting 2 trains here during an action, you get to flip this to industrialize. Now you have a requirement of having 2 stations out on the board when you do this, but now you've got more. If you have lots of chits with pluses, this gives you more that you could pull per turn. If you end up putting 3 trains here after having 2 stations, you can go public. And now when you make a every time you have a delivery, you get a lightning train. Anytime you generate 7 income, you get 2 points. This is how you get the explosives to go to the tunnels. Also gives you an additional rail build. We've talked about the wild secure contract. And as you go up on that score track, I tell you can unlock other chits. These are more powerful ones. They're called power chips. They go into your warehouse and they eventually cycle back in your bag. They give you money, different things like deliveries, wild contracts, conductors, and doing the tunnels. Now, as you put out stations, you're using these cubes. And again, as you do that, you'll be getting different things like action cards and trashing things and possibly getting points. Everyone starts with 2 mogul cards. These sometimes are goals, like, hey, at the end of the game, if you have a certain amount of connected cities in a certain region, you'll get a certain amount of points. Or sometimes they're upgrades, like if you have 4 stations, then you'll get a lightning train each turn. There's also action cards you can get, and they do all sorts of different things, like, hey, this can act as a rubber stamp, which is like a wild contract throughout the game. You just use it one time and it's gone. Or sometimes they do things like, hey, take a chip from the market that costs 3 or less and put it right into your bag. Now, one of the main aspects of this game is player interaction, because let's say the green player had built these trains in this station and they want to do a delivery. They can deliver this last passenger. It's going to go through this, and through this. Now, it went through purple's thing, so they'll get a point. It went through green, so they'll get 1 point. And it went to a green station. So green's going to get 2 points, and purple is going to get 1 point. So sometimes you're going to be giving points to your opponents in order to get points for yourself. And so the player interaction and doing things like that is a big part of the game. And you'll continue doing this, building your bag, building your engine, taking actions, and you'll be doing this for a maximum of 12 rounds, or if faster, the Transcontinental Railroad is made from New York City to San Francisco, and you'll play 1 more round in that case and tally things up by doing some final deliveries and things like that. Whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. All right, yeah, that was just a very high-level sort of conceptual overview of the different concepts in the game. There's a lot more little rules going on in the game I didn't cover and procedures and such, but I want to give you an idea of what the game was like. Now, this game made my top 10 most anticipated games for Gen Con, so let's talk about what I liked about it and then things that didn't hit me quite as well as I was hoping. The Lightning Train, first of all, player interaction is what this is about. This is a train game. You're going to be going around making rails, but using other players' rails and lines to deliver things, it adds a lot of player interaction. You saw that example I showed at the end where it's like, hey, I'm going to get 2 points, you're going to get 1 point. It's probably worth it for me to do that, maybe because I want to deliver that thing right then, right now. It also, it maybe moves me up on the track to get something unlocked from my board, from the scoring spot that I'll be on and things like that. So that plays into it as well. There's also a lot of interactions that you'll learn after playing the game multiple times that you can, if someone has a decently long line and they've been setting up to make a long delivery that might score them 5 points, maybe even more, well, you can make a station that's pretty close and attached to that same good and deliver it. Maybe you only get 1 point, maybe you only get 2 points, but maybe you get 1 point and even the person that had the long train gets 1 point. But guess what? That good, since they can only be delivered once per game to that station, well, that good's gone. And maybe that was the last good from that spot, and maybe now they're not even going to be able to deliver it for the big thing. So sometimes you're trying to do things, and you help with other players possibly to stop other players from making long deliveries. So there's a lot of the player interaction here is the best part of the game, I believe. Not necessarily even the bag building aspect. However, people love bag builders. Here's another one that does things differently. I like that you can place trains on your board for future planning. I don't have enough trains this turn. I can store 1 train. Great. Store a train there, and I can use it for only building trains. Okay, but you could also place things on like to build a station, but you don't have to build it this round. Maybe you put 2 trains there, but you need 3, right? So you can do that in a future round. I like that you have an option to do that. We'll talk more about storage and things like that a little bit later, but I do like that you have options to plan a little bit ahead for things that you want to do given the resources that you're given that round. I like the mogul cards give you end game strategies, sometimes ongoing benefits. Those are really powerful cards, and you can actually get some more of those as the game goes off. You go up high enough on that score track. I like that you're getting bonuses at those different thresholds on the score track, like getting the action cards or your power chips and things like that. That's going to let you build things up as you score points. It sort of like entices you to go out there and score little points here and there at the beginning of the game to move up that track to unlock other things, as opposed to just trying to make this one huge thing before you do anything, before you get any points. So I like that. It kind of keeps the game moving from a scoring perspective there. I like that the game has a randomized setup. I didn't show you this in the thing, but I told you it had a semi-random setup. There's a bunch of different cards. You select one, it tells you where the starting stations are. The starting goods start everywhere, but then every round, you're getting new goods out that come in different orders every game, and 3 of those cards don't get used every game. So that's going to be different. Some places that have a spot on the board that are going to get goods might not get goods that turn. It happened in my first play. I was building in the Southwest. I was building a rail. I was hoping to get some. I had a station for oil, and there was a space near there that was supposed to produce oil, but it never came up that game. So you can't always plan for things to come. This game has some long-term strategy, but it also is very tactical. A lot of times, you're going to have to do the best thing you can right now with that turn, with what you've drawn from that bag right then. And it might not be the plan that you've wanted. And that might not be great for people. If you like to plan things out and have your plan come to fruition and plan 3 turns ahead and boom, I got everything lined up, this isn't really that game. This is a game where you can try to plan for things, but you're at the mercy of what you pull that round from your bag. And then you basically have to go, well, let's make lemon out of lemonade. This wasn't the pull I was hoping. Let me do something else. You need to be able to pivot your strategies in this game from turn to turn. If you don't like doing that, this might not be the game for you. I like that even though the goods might come out in may or may not come out on the board, that they do come out in different orders. Again, you can try to plan, but it's mostly tactical. So let me talk about some of the things that I may or may not, you may or may not like about it, things that I personally didn't like. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I am the type of player that when I play a game that you're using resources and such, I don't necessarily like super tight resource management aspects. I like to have things a little bit more plentiful, have lots of options. I can do many different things, but what thing do I want to do? What thing will I do next? I don't typically like games where I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, this game is so tight resource. Some players love that. Some players love tight resource games. If you like games that are very tight on resources, very tight on what you can do on a turn and possibly not being able to plan a couple turns ahead, then this might be the game for you. Now, the game can be punishing for new players because if you don't focus on getting more trains with the lightning train or conductor icons, you're going to find yourself being short of trains. And the trains run everything in this game. They're used to put on the board. They're used to pay for stations. They're used to, you get those ones back, the ones for the stations, but your most coveted resource are trains. And every time you build them, you now have less in your bag. So you have to continually be building yourself out trains if you want to do anything well in this game. And if you don't know that in your first turn, you're going to be thin on trains and your engine's never really going to get going until the very, very end. And it's going to be frustrating. So new players, focus on lightning trains, focus on conductors, focus on building up a lot of trains. That's going to give you all the options. And then fine tune those with contracts and deliveries and things like that. So it can be punishing to new players. For me, the biggest issue personally that I had with the game was I felt it was restrictive with not really able to store things for future use. Sure, you can store one train on your board that you can use later to build a rail with. You can't do it for any other actions. It can just be build a rail. That's good. I like that. However, I found that oftentimes I would pull almost everything I needed to do what I wanted to do, that I had planned. My big plan, I wanted to do this. I've been working on this. I pull these things. I've got the trains maybe, but maybe I don't have the contract. Well, you can use 2 trains to secure a contract. Yeah, but if I use those, then I won't have enough trains to build. Well, you could have used 2 trains before and put them on the secure contract space, and then this turn you would. That's right, but who has that many trains floating around that they haven't actually already used to get points to move up the track to get their engine building? So you are trying to use them and build as you're getting them. So I felt that without having a spot, I wish there was like a little spot on the board or on a little mini board that allowed you to store one or two, even just one or two chits that you pulled out of that bag that you pulled that turn that you did not want to use that turn. You could store them to use them on a future turn for whatever action you want to use them for. That would have opened up the game, I think, so much. Now, again, the design was probably supposed to try to make it really tight. I personally feel I didn't like it. And that's why I say, if you're a person that likes really tight resources, that gets down to the nitty gritty, you might like that. For me, I didn't, especially with the randomness of pulling from the bag. You never know what you're going to get. You're hoping for the best. And often I found myself being like one chit short of what I needed to do. I had the contract, but I didn't have the trains. Or I had the trains, but I didn't have the contract. I didn't have enough trains to do the contract and the train with the wild contract. I was one train short of just, being able to build the station. And again, I could have put trains there on previous turns to help plan for this, but that means I have less trains. That train is stuck there. And that's the other part of this is like, if you put a train on a secure contract, you can't get those trains back off unless you take that action. So now I have to go build something using that contract amount. I can't just be like, I don't want to use those. Let me just push in my warehouse. They're stuck. That was very punishing. It can be very punishing for you to know that you have no options of not using your trains. If you have trains that you have not used, you must put them somewhere on your board. Now, there's some places that you have requirements, like I might not have two stations, I don't have to put it there. But if I have two stations built and I have an extra train and I don't really want to use it this round, I'd love to store it, and I already have my one storage spot full, I have to put it somewhere. And I can't get that back until I use that action. I found myself in one game getting stuck that way where I was forced to put them on a secure contract. I later pulled the contract that I needed, but now I didn't have the trains because they were stuck there. It can be frustrating. I felt also that getting the engine going happens, but it happens like too close towards the end of the game, and then the game ends. Like I've spent the whole game building this engine. I got like what I got. I've got like 1 or 2 turns left. Also, the 2-player game requires dummy players, so this game is absolutely best with 3 or 4 players. So if you see on the box that it's 1 to 4, it's really a 3 or 4 player if you want to play with all humans. Now, with all this being said, if you like bag builders or you like train games, I think this is an interesting thing you should at least try. Because if you like train games, you haven't played a lot of bag builders, it's going to make you think in a different way. If you've played bag builders but you're not huge into train games, this is going to make you think of bag building in a different way. And again, if you like tight resource management, if you don't mind randomness of pulls and not being able to plan, and if you like the aspect of, hey, I'm just going to deal with what I drew this turn and I have to just figure out what the best thing is to do here, maybe I could try to plan for ahead, but resources are going to be tight. If you like that, then I think this is going to be the game for you. Like for me personally, I like things to be a little bit more plentiful, have more options and have more different ways that I can go as opposed to feeling as restricted as I did. So overall, there's a lot of unique things. I think you should at least definitely check it out if you like bag building or train building or train games. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships through board games, and helping you on the next one you love. Game Toppers upgrades every game you play, being the one table to rule them all with Game Toppers, leg kits, dining covers, premium game mats, and more. In their 5.0 Kickstarter, they found a way to deflate prices to pre-pandemic levels without sacrificing their quality brand, and in some cases by $200, plus dropping the shipping price as much as 50%, saving another $100. Go to GameToppersLLC.com to late pledge now.